SmackDown kicked off their season premiere on Fox in a very interesting way. We had a farewell match for the New Day. Roman Reigns versus Braun Strowman in the main event, and so much more. Hey everyone, I'm Denise Salcedo. You are watching Smack Talk on Sports Kita, and today, as you can see, Rick Ucchino is not in, but no fear. We do have a very special guest joining me here today. Thank you so much to Ryan Boman. Thank you for doing this and coming in on such a short notice today.
Hey, as I said to you guys today, I will never be able to fill the huge shoes of Rick, but I'll try to do my best tonight.
No worry, it'll be a great time. Guys, if you are watching the chat, I am going to be reading your comments throughout the night, so make sure to send in your thoughts on SmackDown. We're going to be going over the main key points and just overall what we thought about the show. But I guess to sort of kick things off, Ryan, what did you think of SmackDown today?
Well, I think one of the things that I love about the Friday night format is that it's that 2 hours and it goes by so quickly. I love the setup of the Thunderdome. I mean, obviously you get lemons, you have to make lemonade. I think the show looked great, and tonight's show especially, it just seemed like it flew by. And anytime you're watching something like that and you're entertained to the point that it doesn't feel like it drags on, that's always a bonus. And I think tonight's show was a lot like that.
I think so too, and it just really kicked off in a fun way where you're like, okay, this is a big deal. I mean, they had the pre-show on Fox, which just really added to the electricity. I mean, after all, it's the season premiere, so I think they did a really good job. And like you mentioned, the Thunderdome looked great, and I think the fact that they even had like Ric Flair in it, Jeff Jarrett, Brie, and all those extra special, appearances just really, really added to this. But let's go ahead and start off with some chats here from everybody. So we have Tommy Landis, who says, I can't believe Roman made his opponent pass out. We will get to that later today, but thank you so much, Tommy Landis, for sending in a comment here today. So let's just go ahead and kick it off. So we're going to go chronologically just because it just feels a lot easier to sort of get through SmackDown that way. So I mentioned that they kicked off the show in a real fun way, Ryan. And the way that they did so is they had Stephanie and Triple H have the roster out. They announce all of the matches that's going to go down on the show. They mentioned some of the new faces that are going to be on there. And I mean, it's not every day that we have Triple H and Stephanie opening up the show. What did you think of this?
Well, I think you used the term special earlier. And I think that really, for a while, it seemed like we saw the McMahons to open every show for the first segment, for a couple years. And I think we found now that less is more with Stephanie and Triple H. When they actually show up now and they make an announcement, it feels like a big deal again. And I think tonight was no exception, especially having all the wrestlers out on the ramp. It gave the show a really special feeling and a great vibe.
What do you think about, how did you feel? Because I know, so Rick and I, we went on a whole, discussion about the WWE draft and everything that went down. But I want to get your opinions, I guess, before we kind of go into that, into some of the new faces that we're seeing on SmackDown. Were there any moves, anybody that you feel that SmackDown lost or gains that you were excited about?
I think my biggest takeaway of the draft, and I think it's obviously the champions stayed in place on their respective shows, but I'm sure we'll touch on this here later on, but the idea that they separated the New Day and really looked like they're positioning Big E to be a major star on his own. I thought they had a great segment together tonight, but I thought that was the big takeaway story from the draft. Is it looks like Big E is really going to be pushed to the moon and into that main event picture.
I guess one can hope so, right? If he's going to be separated from the New Day, and the New Day are such big money makers, especially when it comes to merch and all of that, you would hope that they're definitely going to do something with Big E. And, a lot of people have said like, oh, they could do it with Big E, or, oh, they can't because of his personality or whatever. But I actually think that, what Big E does can definitely, really do well as a main star. I love the fact that he brings in this comedy, into his wrestling. I like that. Even though some people don't, I think it's great. All right. So, after they have the roster, essentially everybody goes into this big brawl. They're all trying to impress everybody, trying to be, the person getting all of the attention on this new season premiere of SmackDown. And as everybody is brawling, all of a sudden we have the music of Lars Sullivan hit, and then he comes out, destroys everyone, and this leads into a match with Jeff Hardy. But how did you feel about Lars Sullivan coming out, and essentially they're really putting a large focal point on him? Are you a fan of it, or are you not a fan of it?
Not a big fan of it, just because I feel like, And I hate to bury anybody, but at this point, this guy's gotten so many chances, and some of the outside of the ring stuff. I don't know how much I would invest in someone who's made so many mistakes. And when I say invest in him, they've made him look almost unstoppable. That's great if you know that 6 months down the road we're not going to have another incident that kind of derails his career. But once again, we found that if Vince McMahon likes you, if he likes your look and he likes your style in the ring, you can pretty much get away with anything in WWE. Randy Orton is a great example of that over the years. And Lars just seems to be one of those guys that they are committed to. They've dug in their heels, and they certainly made him look like an absolutely unstoppable force tonight.
See, I'm not a big fan of the Lars Sullivan thing. And, we're not going to go into why, but I think everybody here knows why. But even just today, I'm not buying the whole, oh, this guy is so big and he's going to destroy everybody. And I was honestly very irritated with the freak. Just hearing that over and over again, I wasn't really feeling this. I wasn't a fan of this whatsoever. But everybody here in the chat, what did you guys think of this, really big focal point, this push that we're seeing Lars Sullivan get? I mean, good for him, but at the same time, it's just not really connecting with me. And based on what I'm seeing on Twitter, it's not really connecting with a lot of people, and that's a problem.
Yeah, I agree completely. And the funny thing about that is if they wanted to push someone as an unstoppable monster, they already had that guy in Braun Strowman, and they kind of cut his legs out from underneath him. I know that he flubbed a couple promos, which is a no-no in WWE. He had, he's had some injuries here and there. But honestly, I would see him more in that role than I would Lars Sullivan. He looks much more impressive to me physically. And again, you don't have some of the other baggage that comes along with, not to get into any details or cast aspersions on anybody's character. I certainly don't know all the details of his personal life, but there's been so many things that have popped up that you just wonder if he's worth the investment.
Thank you. I think the key words of what you just said right now is if you wonder if he's worth the investment. And that's true, because right now there are so many guys that are really vying to get this spot in WWE or just really anywhere. It could be in any, major promotion, whether it's WWE or AEW or whatever it may be. And so I think that now, because there are so many guys trying to get that spot, so many talented guys, it's almost like the bar has been raised and new standards have to be met. And I just don't really get that right now with Lars Sullivan. But we're seeing here Benjamin Kimbrough just wrote boring. All right, so that's sort of the general consensus here that we're getting with the freak Lars Sullivan. So he did go into this match with Jeff Hardy, and like I said, we were just hearing the freak over and over again. Lars Sullivan did win this match. I mean, given how everything that Jeff Hardy has been doing as of late, I don't think this match did any justice for Jeff Hardy whatsoever. And I get it. Jeff Hardy is already somebody that, has proven himself over and over again. They're trying to get Lars Sullivan over, but it's just, I wasn't a fan of this. How about you?
No, I really, to be honest with you, it was kind of crazy to see a guy who's basically a WWE legend just bounced around the ring like a pinball. I mean, Jeff really, he took bump after bump after bump in this match and then essentially lost clean to Lars Sullivan. I kept expecting a run in, maybe Elias pop up, something, to distract Jeff. No, I mean, they pretty much gave this clean win to Lars Sullivan. And again, it's just an indication that they are fully invested in his character going forward. And I like his classic heel look, but I don't see him as a main event superstar for the long haul. I think this is an experiment that at the end of the day it's not gonna bear the fruit that they think it's going to.
Yeah, I think so too, because at the end of the day, it really does have to connect with the audiences as well. So you mentioned that the real big takeaway from tonight's show was honestly the whole farewell match with the New Day. And oh my God, so today that was it. That was it. We got the New Day versus Cesaro and Sheamus and Shinsuke Nakamura in what was billed as the New Day's farewell match, because as we all know, Kofi and Xavier will be going to Raw and Big E will be staying on SmackDown for that singles push, hopefully, that we just talked about a few seconds ago. They kind of started this off, talking about their memories. I wasn't expecting this. I didn't think they were going to get this opportunity, this mic time, to really talk with the audience about their past and everything that they've been through together. Before we get into the match, how did you feel about, just them having this opportunity to talk to the WWE universe?
I think it was really kind of a crowning moment for them. I was not a fan of this act when they first launched. I just thought it was so silly and kind of corny and cheesy, But over the years, with all they've accomplished and all the great matches they put on with teams like the Usos and so on and so on, I mean, obviously that was a classic rivalry. They've earned my respect tenfold from the time they started. So getting the chance to see them go out there and have the opportunity to kind of sum it all up and put a bow on things, I think it was a great moment for WWE. I think it was a great moment in SmackDown history.
And it's very rare when we get to see something like that. And it came across as very genuine and very sentimental. Like, you can tell that they weren't just, BSing their feelings or anything like that, because you can really feel that they were sad about this breakup. I mean, years of being, an entity together, and then, it all comes to, ends. It's a really hard thing to sort of, have to get through and whatnot. But I do like the fact, though, that they never had one of them turn on each other, because they really left the doors open for a possible reunion down the line. So who knows when we're going to see that? Hopefully, once we do get to see a New Day reunion, we have crowds and we can get that real large pop, because everyone's going to go crazy for it.
Absolutely, and I think you summed it up best. It's such a worn out trope of one tag team member, one member of a clique or a faction turning heel or turning on his teammates. I do like the way that you stated that they're leaving the door open, and somewhere down the road there will be a New Day reunion.
And we're going to want it, and we're going to be very, very excited about it, definitely. So they did go into this match with, the 6-man tag. I thought the match itself was very fast-paced. We saw them do a lot. It felt like a nice farewell match, especially for the amount of time that they had. I think they went several minutes on this. What did you think of the match itself? We did have the New Day win, obviously, so no surprise there. But how did you feel about the match itself?
Oh, I loved the match, and I thought it was another indication of how the show flowed so quickly. They had the first match, went right into the introduction of New Day, and basically the whole first hour of the show were 2 long, really well-done matches that held your attention. And before you knew it, you blinked an eye, and we're getting into the second hour of SmackDown. I do want to throw in, though, sandwiched in between those first 2 matches was a tremendous promo video for Bianca Belair, who they continue to highlight as this future star, and I think she's definitely can't miss. So I kind of did jot that down earlier as don't forget to mention the Bianca promo. But as far as your take on the match, yes, both teams pulled out all stops. The New Day may be the best I've ever seen in terms of 6-man tags when the action breaks down and they just throw everything in the kitchen sink at you. And they certainly did that tonight in this match.
I think so too. I think you nailed it right there. And I'm so glad that you mentioned the Bianca Belair package, because as previously she was on Raw before the WWE draft, and we were seeing some awesome videos of her. And so I'm glad that they haven't stopped those on SmackDown, because I live for those. Those are real great. Ozzy Medoro says, I thought the New Day match was awesome. I think awesome is definitely a good word for this match. Honestly, it was really good. And then in the end, it kind of got very emotional, where they were just, hugging each other, and you know what? People's eyes got watery with this segment. All right. That's the end of that. That's the summary of it all. So let's jump into Daniel Bryan. He's back on Friday night SmackDown. He had Brie and his daughter on the Thunderdome, which was a really nice little extra touch. How did you feel seeing Daniel Bryan back?
It was so funny. We just came off I just got done cracking up at the Otis promo because of the T-shirt that he had on that said "Body by Steak," which I think is just brilliant. And I was actually eating steak at the time when that promo was on. But then you bring out Daniel Bryan, and I have to just say it right now. Is there anyone who is genuinely more respected and liked by the fan base than Daniel Bryan? It doesn't matter how long he goes away or what he does out there. He is one of those people that when he's on the screen, you genuinely in your heart feel like this is a great guy. This is somebody I can root for and get behind. Even when he had the heel run, I think people still rooted for him because they just love his work. They love him on the microphone. And obviously he's one of the best ever inside the ring. anytime you get a chance to see Daniel Bryan, it's something special.
See, and I like that you said that you really described very well just how the fans feel about him. So because of that, I'm just going to go ahead and share my opinion here. I do think that Daniel Bryan is the next logical opponent for Roman Reigns, given the fact that you just said he is the ultimate babyface. And right now, who is our ultimate heel? It's none other than Roman Reigns. So having, both of them sort of, work together in the storyline after, Roman Reigns is done with Jey Uso, going on to somebody like Daniel Bryan would be fantastic because character-wise, it would be great. Match-wise, it would be superior. So I do have to say that I hope that's eventually we see that down the line for Daniel Bryan. But before we, talk about that, Seth Rollins did come out and interrupt Daniel Bryan during all of this. He basically, calls out the fact that, Daniel Bryan has this baby brain, and that's an actual quote, baby brain now. And the baby brain has got into him and just kind of, throws a couple of shots as to, how he's been away, being a father and a husband and all of that. So it was interesting to see Seth Rollins and Daniel Bryan. I am looking forward to eventually seeing them wrestle, on SmackDown. Is that something you would be interested in?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Seth is just an outstanding performer, a great athlete. We saw him, I kind of was thinking to myself, he's really transitioned away from being that number one babyface on Raw when he ran the gauntlet and, challenged Brock and all of the things that we saw him do when he was the babyface, again, probably the number one good guy on that show, so to speak. And now he's kind of gone into this darker place. Very different positioning on the card now, but it's mainly because he has a different type of job. He's in that role as the heel to get other guys over now. And as far as in-ring work and being able to make his opponent look good, he's one of the best in the world. Of course, that's not going to be a hard job to do if you're in the ring with Daniel Bryan. You got two guys who are basically artists, and I would love to see a nice drawn-out feud between the two of them.
Oh, and those are my favorite. Well, my favorites when they're done right. Drawn out feuds when they're done right. I'm going to rephrase that because I was going to say, I love drawn out feuds. No, I need to rephrase that. We do have a comment from Carissa Lopez who literally stole the perfect tweet. I was going to tweet this earlier. She says, heel Roman and babyface Bryan equals money bags, money bags, money bags. Carissa Lopez, you and I are on the same page because I was thinking the exact same thing. Ryan Markham says, don't rule out Jey Uso. That storyline has been great, and we'll talk about that when we get there because that is what closed out the show. So, Ryan, we will circle back to this once we get to that. But after this, we did see a continuation, which is what everybody expected when we saw both Seth Rollins, Rey Mysterio, and Dominic were all drafted to SmackDown together. We are seeing a continuation of everything that they've been doing on Raw. So we had Rey Mysterio and Dominic came out once we had Seth Rollins and Daniel Bryan. And for a second, it kind of looks like they were going to do a Rey, Dom, Daniel Bryan, Seth Rollins situation. But Daniel Bryan was like, nah, I'm not a part of this. I'm out. He leaves Seth Rollins high and dry. And then Buddy Murphy comes out, and Buddy Murphy ends up turning on Seth Rollins here in this segment. And yeah, definitely no one wants to be friends with Seth Rollins here. And then after that, we do see Buddy Murphy extend his hand out to Rey Mysterio, trying to make peace with him, but Rey Mysterio does not accept. What did you think of all of this?
Well, as the father of 4 daughters, it's completely realistic. You're always going to be the protective papa. But no, I'm actually a lot of these love stories and a lot of the kind of the gaga that goes on in some of the storylines involving romance and backstage intrigue and all that, I'm not really into. But I have to admit, I'm kind of intrigued by the way they're really elevating Murphy with this storyline. And I certainly hope at the end of the day, this doesn't turn out to be a swerve and he turns out to be the bad guy, because I think Murphy joining forces with the Mysterios is the biggest boost to his career that he would ever have. And being able to fight alongside them and be a kind of a de facto part of the family, I think could do nothing but serve great things for Murphy going forward. And obviously it helps with the development of Dominic. If they're able to team together, Dominic has an established veteran to kind of lean on and learn from. So it's a perfect fit in my mind.
I like the fact that you're seeing this as a way to elevate Buddy Murphy, because I do agree with that. I mean, prior to that, how much focus was there really on Buddy Murphy? So, now that we do have this, going on with Aaliyah and all of this, it really is adding a lot to Murphy. And Ozzy had the same question. Will Buddy Murphy join Ray and Dominic? Maybe not right now, because like you said, this was very realistic for fathers out there everywhere. They're not necessarily going to be shaking hands with the guy that was responsible for taking your eye out and now, has a romantic relationship with his daughter. Abbas Jara says, when is the Mysterio and Seth Rollins story over? I know some people aren't feeling it. You know what? I'm gonna take the heat here. I am so far not hating it so much. So I'm actually enjoying it for what it is. But that's just me. John Elite for Life says, I'm so loving this Roman Jey storyline. I feel like this is the storyline that people are all on the same page about here. But let's go ahead and continue. So after this, we did get to see the Street Profits versus Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode. And what was honestly a really quick match. There wasn't really much to add to this. But do you have anything you want to say about this match in particular?
Well, I think the Street Profits, they really kind of struck me when I first saw them. But as we've gone along, and obviously they've had success, it just seems like there's something missing. They've lost a little bit of steam. They're obviously very entertaining as a duo, and you kind of get that they're part comedy act, part athletes. I mean, yes, they can do the bits and the skits backstage, but when they get in the ring, they're definitely the real deal. It just feels like it's time for them to turn the page and do something a little bit different to maybe evolve their characters. And I'm not necessarily encouraging them going heel, because I don't think they would make a good heel tag team. I think the audience genuinely likes laughing and playing along with them and kind of it being one big party when they come out there. But at the same time, I feel like, it's gotten somewhat stale right now, and that's not a good thing considering they haven't been around that long.
Exactly. And, you mentioned that you feel the Street Profits have lost a little bit of the momentum that you have. And I have the perfect reason as to why. And that is because we have literally been seeing them in the same matches over and over on when they were on Raw. And unfortunately, because the tag team division has been very, very narrowed down, slimmed down, it has affected people like people like the Street Profits that haven't been able to have, a variety of different opponents to have, really stellar matches that the fans can get behind of. But I do have to say that and every time that Montez Ford comes out and he does, all of these high flying, crazy stuff that he does, not to mention just his frog splash, but everything that he does, the amount of energy and everything that he puts into each and every single move, it can't be ignored. So every time that he does anything, I am still blown away by Montez Ford.
I agree with that.
Still catches me, right? Like even today, he had a moment during, I think during the brawl where my eyes just came out of my head and I was like, can this guy can just go very, very high up with whatever he does.
Yeah, he's got what they call physical charisma. Even if he doesn't grab a microphone and speak, his actions, his movements in the ring, it's like lightning. You just have to watch it and just sit back and wait for what happens next.
Exactly. And he also has mic charisma too. So the guy's got it all, right? Let's just be real. He has it all. All right. We did have Ozzy, who also says that the Robert Roode Dolph Ziggler match was good. Alrighty. So we had the Sasha Bayley contract signing for their Hell in a Cell match for the SmackDown Women's title. It was conducted by Adam Pearce. Before we get into, what went down on this, how do you feel about Adam Pearce and everything that he's been doing as an, on-camera personality?
Oh, I'm a huge Adam Pearce fan. I go back to the Scrap Iron days when he was the NWA World Champion, and we kind of used to joke around with him on Twitter a little bit about, we always call him the Dapper Adam Pearce because he's always out there, in a sport coat or a nice suit or something like that. But no, I love the fact that and it's ironic because in his prime he was one of the great in-ring performers in professional wrestling, and he's actually more famous now as a backstage agent and gets more TV time in prime time than he did when he was an active wrestler. But hey, good for him. He's one of the good guys in the business, and it's great to see that he's gotten an opportunity to be one of the the higher ups there in WWE.
And I like what he's been doing too, because he doesn't come across, sometimes when you put people in these roles, they tend to come across as annoying, right? Where you're like, oh, this person's out here again, or oh, there's too much focus on this person. But with Adam Pearce, I don't feel that way. Like when he comes out, I take seriously what he's saying and what he's doing. So I was very happy that he conducted this contract signing. So you had some back and forth between Bayley and Sasha here in the segment, and in the end of it all, Bayley didn't sign the contract. How do you feel about this whole Bayley Sasha feud and Bayley not signing the contract here tonight?
Well, I got a couple of thoughts on that, and then I'll throw it back to you. Number one, Sasha came out rocking the red cat suit, which I thought was a cool look for her. But she also handled her business on the microphone. Really great way to foreshadow the match by looking back at obviously they have a long history together. She ran down, she talked about their ups and downs together, how she always stood by Bayley, and she was one of the people that helped her win that title belt, and how she was betrayed at the end. I think it's great palace intrigue between these two. And at the same time, I think the walking away, the fact that Bayley does the heel move, walks away, it further solidifies the fact that Bayley, who made such a really great, she was such a cookie cutter babyface when she first debuted, and people really got tired of it. It sort of spoiled on them. Now she's evolved into just a fantastic heel, and actually, to me, is more over with the fans as the quote unquote bad girl as any time when she was the huggable, lovable Bayley.
And she was so good at doing the huggable, lovable Bayley, role that you almost didn't think she had this, this Bayley in her arsenal. Like for a second, I didn't think it was possible, but then she really took over this new Bayley and just really made it blossom. And we are really seeing, what she can do as a heel. And I'm loving it. I do think that there are some changes that they could have made with this. I said this on last week's SmackDown. I do think that Sasha should have been drafted to Raw so that they could, just really keep that momentum between them, have them separated so that, Bayley can essentially just mock her for the fact that she never got her revenge. I did want to see Sasha Banks win the Royal Rumble, and that's how she would land her match for WrestleMania. That was my ideal fantasy booking for this, and I personally would have been a bigger fan of this. And so I don't know how the Hell in a Cell match is going to play out. I don't know if we're going to have Sasha Banks win the bout or if she's going to lose. I have no prediction for this one. I am curious to see what they're going to do. But at the same time, the fact that Bayley didn't sign the contract, I almost feel like it doesn't feel unique for a feud like what they're doing with Sasha and Bayley. They need to be more unique. And the reason for that is we just had Roman Reigns with his match for his triple threat match with Bray Wyatt and Braun Strowman. He also did the whole, I'm not going to sign the contract. And then he ends up signing it last minute, comes into the match and, plays that out. I feel that that's already been okay, we just did that recently, so let's think of something new. Does that even bother you at all, or just moving on with that?
Yeah, it's these contract signings at some point now have gotten to be so repetitive, whether it's somebody attacks the other one and puts them through the table, or again, as you said, we've seen this, I'll walk away and play the heelish role and not sign the contract. Though I think my biggest takeaway, I guess they've kind of painted themselves in the corner because you have to make Bayley, as bad as you can possibly make her. At the same time, while I was watching that, and I was wanting to get your thoughts on this, right now, this women's division is missing its three most recognizable names in Ronda Rousey, Becky Lynch, and Charlotte. And these two ladies, along with Asuka, have really picked up the ball and ran with it in their absence. So, while I probably wouldn't have, and certainly I'm no booker, but I didn't like the walking away without signing the contract thing. I really wish it would have just been a kind of them, cutting cutting their teeth on each other, basically baring their teeth, then signing it, and then there just being a lot of tension and walk away. I think that would have built more suspense than Bayley walking away, because we know eventually she's going to have to renege and sign that contract.
And it would have been more realistic had she just signed it and been like, you know what, you want to fight me? Well, you know what, so do I. And, mentioning your thoughts about what you said, us not having Ronda Rousey, Becky Lynch, or Charlotte Flair, obviously that does hurt. And I'm interested in seeing when they're going to bring back Charlotte Flair. I'm excited to see her back. Becky Lynch, I know it's still going to be a while. Ronda Rousey, I don't know if we're going to see her back, if ever. Who knows? That may have just been a one-time thing. We don't know for sure. So it is a big, there's a big hole to fill there, essentially. But I do think that they have women that have the potential to fill that, people like Bianca Belair that we're talking about. Asuka unfortunately had that potential, but they never gave her an opponent that could actually elevate her as a champion. So I almost feel like her championship reign hasn't really made her look as strong. I don't think it's elevated her to the point where Charlotte Flair was or Becky Lynch was. For me, unfortunately, she's not there, and that's only because of the way that her, reign has been booked. We all know that Asuka's a star and she's a great in-ring performer, but it all really depends on how she's booked as a champion. And I do see down the line eventually people like Rhea Ripley really taking an opportunity. I don't know if they're ever going to pull the plug with Candice LeRae, but she's also one of them that I can see getting that nice, if she goes back to being a babyface, I think she would work great with that. I know a lot of people are also rooting for Naomi. People have been wanting Naomi to get this real great moment. So they have a lot of women, but it is hard to go from here to that Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair level.
Yeah, and you're naming three ladies that are pretty much icons, even though Ronda had a short run. She's obviously accomplished. She's a UFC Hall of Famer. She's a household name to most people. Charlotte and Becky, clearly two of the greatest female performers of all time. But again, I think their absence has made the women's division stronger, because when Charlotte and Becky finally do return, they're going to be facing opponents that have been elevated at least closer to their level than there were before. So, and again, I think that Sasha and Bayley have really led the way. And if Charlotte comes back anytime soon, there's some obvious past history between all three of them. So you put her in that mix, and, you just got all kinds of, you can, basically open a Pandora's box of what happens with that women's division. And maybe we see another renaissance in that division like we did as the ladies headed in and headlined WrestleMania.
Right. And then JJC710 says, Ronda has never been a force in wrestling. For me, she can stay gone. Unfortunately, I will have to respectfully disagree. I think Ronda Rousey did a lot for wrestling in general. She took it to an even, bigger mainstream point. She had one of the best debuts, for, a person that just really went into wrestling just that fast. So I actually have to say that Ronda does not get enough credit for what she did in WWE during her brief time there. How do you feel about this?
Oh, I had egg on my face. I predicted that the WrestleMania debut would be an absolute flop and she would look foolish out there. And she went out and literally just commanded the crowd, took things over, and she looked better than I had. I would have lost $1 million if I'd have laid a bet down on that match that she was going to come out and do what she did. And in my mind, again, it's not so much that what she did in the wrestling ring or the fact that, she was such an accomplished pro wrestler. It was the star power that she brought to that division and helped elevate the ladies around her, because, again, she is a household name. She's appeared in movies. She's a UFC legend, a model. She's been all over the world. And then you're able to inject her not only into the WWE universe, but for her to be able to perform at that level. She wasn't just hey, celebrity, we're going to stamp approval on you and send you out there, which we've seen happen with a lot of celebrities they brought into the company. She really came in and she put her name on that division for quite a while. If we don't see her again, I still think that her run in WWE will always be memorable.
Right. And you mentioned it's the star power. You can't disregard the impact that she had and the media attention that it surely brought into all of this. So now let's talk about the thing that everybody looks like they want to talk about, and that is definitely the Roman Reigns, Jey Uso thing. So for the main event tonight, for the Universal Championship, we had Roman Reigns versus Braun Strowman. Overall, this was a decent match. I thought that this was a good opponent for Roman Reigns, and he ended up winning with a guillotine choke, which I thought was a great addition to his arsenal of, moves that he already does. It added a new dimension to Roman Reigns. He won won via submission, which we just mentioned at the top of the show. But after this, we did have Roman spear Strowman in front of Jey Uso because Jey Uso came out and essentially, confronted, and they had like this, faraway stare down and whatnot. And then after this, we had Roman Reigns hit Braun with a bunch of chair shots. So this was a real intense thing, but it didn't stop there. Jey Uso ended up, beating the heck out of Roman Reigns with the chairs. And then after this, there was this big pull apart. And I mean, things got real crazy there. How do you feel about everything that went down tonight?
Well, first of all, I'll go back to the same thing I just said about Bayley. There's a lot of parallels between this heel turn for Roman and the one that Bayley experienced, where for years they were the cookie cutter babyface, the good guy, the hero, the one that loves the fans and has nothing but positive to say and acts right in the ring, follows all the rules, does everything the right way. And much like Bayley, it's been a resurgence for Roman to kind of embrace the dark side and stand next to Paul Heyman. We're getting to see so many more layers to his character now. And this family feud with Jey Uso, it brings out, again, sort of this Darth Vader-like mentality in Roman that we've never seen before. I thought the segment tonight was great. I think it set up so much to continue to further this family feud. And, I really, when they first decided to make this move and kind of pull Roman over to the dark side, I wasn't sure if it was going to work, but the fans clearly have embraced it. I think they sort of enjoy booing Roman.
Yeah, exactly. And we do have some comments about this. So JJC710 says the Roman Reigns Jey Uso thing just gets better every dang week. The ending was epic because it adds to his moveset and lines up the whole I Quit match. I mean, yeah, I think JJC nailed it on this one here. They're adding new elements each and every single week. I didn't expect Jey Uso to, have something to attack Roman Reigns today with all of those chair shots. I didn't see that coming. I thought he was always going to be, really seen as the underdog in this feud, but it sort of feels like just doing that, it gave him a little bit of an edge over Roman Reigns there.
Yeah, and, it's kind of, again, you talked about wanting to see classic feuds and them kind of have different arcs. Right, Jay's sort of been, for lack of a better term, the poor sick cousin to start this feud, and he looked like he had no chance. Tonight really gave it a nice little turn, not a total 180, but showed us those shades of Jay, not shades of gray, but shades of Jay that will maybe help further this thing along. And I really think in the end, obviously, if I were a betting man, I'm going to say Roman prevails and possibly even forces the Usos to join his side. But in the meantime, it's going to be a fun ride seeing how this plays out. Once again, I think this is as intriguing as Roman has been, at least for the last couple years in WWE. And he's really found his niche, kind of making, again, this turn to the dark side. That's the only way I can really put it.
It seems like the dark side is definitely working for him. Abbas Jarrah says Roman is going to destroy Jay. I mean, that's what I'm expecting. Is that what you're expecting from this Hell in a Cell match?
Oh, absolutely. And you brought up a great point of him using the submission. And, you're in there against a top-notch opponent and you get a clean win. Again, another heel on the show, getting a clean win over a very popular babyface. And it just, again, further cements that this guy is a bad dude, because he put down Braun in a submission hold, and then was ready to take on, go mano-a-mano with his own flesh and blood. I think it's, as you said, it just adds another layer to his moveset. It adds more intrigue going into this match. And I agree with the person who sent in the message. Again, if I were a betting man, I'd probably lay the house on Roman coming out of this feud on top.
Yes, I don't see them going in any other direction, but the fact that he's essentially going to brutalize his own cousin, it's just really going to amp up Roman Reigns as a heel. And I mean, I'm sorry, but the more that you make me believe that Roman Reigns is this legit bad guy, the more I'm going to, buy it. And I love the fact that even tonight, he did say something along the lines of, that he's the one that needs to be on top of the family. Like, if the family's going going to survive, if their legacy is going to survive, he needs to be the person on top. He needs to be the tribal chief, and that Jey Uso needs to understand that. And that's some very manipulative, work that they're doing with this storyline, and I love that.
Yeah, I think psychologically it just ropes the fans even more into, what the story they're trying to tell. And on the flip side of that, at some point, as Roman runs roughshod over that heavyweight division on SmackDown, then there's going to be this clamoring of who's going to be the avenging angel, who's going to be the hero who steps up to finally slay the dragon. I'd say let's let Roman marinate right there at the top of the card and just lay waste to everybody, and then eventually the person who topples him will be a made man.
Oh, yes, for sure. Ryan Markham says Roman Reigns is the next Dark Knight. That is a good reference there. Ozzy Madara says, when was Jey in a Hell in a Cell match ever? Interesting. And Philip Shaven says Roman destroyed Jey tonight. Philip, I definitely think so, but at the same time, Jey did get he got his own piece of the cake there. He really, really did. And then Benjamin Crimble has a good question. Says, would you have made any changes according to the WWE draft? In terms of anything, like I said, I would have definitely had Sasha Banks drafted over to Raw. I would have drafted Andrade a lot sooner. And I would have maybe not drafted Retribution because I don't think it works with their character. And trying to think if there was anything else specifically that I wanted to mention, but I don't think so. Do you have anybody that you would have made any changes? Oh, and the New Day one, obviously.
Well, yeah, my biggest, I guess, gripe about the draft was more the fallout of having the tag team champions switch shows and then essentially just hand each other their belts.
How did you feel about that? Because people were pissed.
Yeah, I was one of those people. I wouldn't say pissed, but I would say I was just more confused. Like, why did you even do that? It's just silly. And to me, it kind of, and I realize now titles don't mean today what they did 20 years ago in wrestling, and it's a little bit more watered down, but it does sort of devalue your titles and something that you in storyline have worked so hard for to be able to just give it away. I mean, if I'm the tag team champions on SmackDown, I'm supposed to believe that those are the most important belts, and the Raw titles are secondary and vice versa. So then when you get drafted to Raw, all of a sudden, well, now I'll just take the Raw belts. It just kind of seemed like, tit for tat. And there was really, I don't know, it just seemed kind of confusing to me. I understand why they wanted to move the New Day and these other tag teams, back and forth and all these switches with the roster. But when you're actually physically just kind of handing someone else your belt and taking their belt in exchange, to me, that was the silliest thing that came out of the draft.
I agree with you 100%. I get what they were trying to do. They were trying to be funny. Okay, let's switch the red and blue bouts, whatever. So I get where they were coming from on this. But at the same time, it very, very much devalues the bouts in terms of it really just makes them look like a prop. And you said it. When you're holding the belt, that should be the belt that you prize with all of your, with everything that you have. You don't want anybody else to have this belt. And I get it. It's the same belt, the tag team belt. But at the same time comes the pride of, defeating all, whether it be on all these tag teams on the Raw brand or on the SmackDown brand. Personally, I would have preferred it didn't matter for one of them, whatever tag team, to go to the other brand. It didn't matter to me which brand, but I would have wanted them to be in the same brand so that they could finally unify those tag team bouts, and we wouldn't have to have the separate Raw and SmackDown tag team bouts and just have them be one pair of tag team bouts and go from there, kind of like the women's where, they kind of bounce back and forth, because obviously we don't have enough tag teams. So why have to have those separate belts?
No, I said that at the time. Why not just have a unification match? I like the idea that the women's belts, when we get to see them, which is, few and far between sometimes. But I like the idea of there just being one. Obviously, you're going to have one champion, I don't like the idea of having two world champions, essentially, but it's a necessity because of having the two different shows. But I really do like the idea of a tag team championship that can pop up on any of the three major brands. I'd agree with you. I really was hoping that we'd have some sort of unification match with winner take all, as opposed to the swap meet we had going on in the back. But hey, I mean, at this point now, we've come out of all that. Everything's lined up. We've got the season premiere. It's almost like a fresh start now for WWE. So whatever they had to do to get here, I guess right now all we can do as fans is look to the future and going forward.
Exactly. And hopefully we don't see any more, silly switcheroos there. Carissa Lopez says, if the Roman Jey storyline ends at Hell in a Cell, I'd see Jey eventually becoming a heel and join Roman and later on recruit the rest of the Samoan dynasty to join in. Do you see this happening, Ryan?
Oh, if it does happen, that's considering the size and the skills of that family. I mean, the possibilities are endless. You could have a group of 5 or 6 of the Anoa'i, ancestors all together, led by Roman. They could literally run WWE together, and I would love that. I would love to see that faction as heels, or maybe even in between, where they just kind of pick and choose who they're going to go after. I'd love to see that happen.
And I personally feel that when WWE does factions, I think they do a pretty good job with most of them. So I could definitely see something like that really working out. And we don't really have that many right now on the roster. We have a few with Retribution, the Hurt Business, and so on. But something like this, would be really cool, honestly. But I don't think that might be where it goes. I think in order to make this into a real big deal, I do think that Roman has to essentially, this sounds awful, but he's gonna have to brutalize Jey. And I think that Jey being gone for a while, not too long, but just enough to sell whatever happens at the Hell in a Cell, because at the end of the day, it's the Hell in a Cell, and they want to put over the fact that this is a career changer, all of the classic WWE lines that they tell you about the Hell in a Cell. So they really do have to sell that for the Roman Jey storyline. I'm excited to see where they're going to go with this. I think that everybody's liking it, and I hope. Let me ask you this: what do you think once Jey comes back? What do you think this is going to do for his career? Let's just say that he goes away for a little bit after this Roman thing, and he comes back. How do you think, should they, really push him to the moon to make a single star, especially because he's gotten over so well with the fans? Do you just go back to the Usos? What do you do?
Honestly, and I hate to say this because I think he's very talented, but I think Jey will always be linked to his brother. Even if they do make an attempt to push him as a single star, I think he's just always going to be viewed as one of the Uso brothers. I don't see him. I think this is more about making Roman look like this evil kind of monster, this guy that's kind of torn between the guy he used to be and the man he's becoming now, as opposed to actually being a long-term push for Jey. I would certainly embrace it because he's a great athlete. Obviously, he's accomplished everything he's going to accomplish as a tag team performer. There's nothing really left for those guys to do anymore. They've had multiple title reigns on both shows. But really, in the end, I think this is more about furthering Roman and his storyline than it is about establishing Jey as a single star.
Exactly. And kudos to Jey, because he, maybe a lot of people would have not guessed that this would be, such a storyline that people were so heavily invested in, but he's really made it work in everything that he's supposed to do. He's been doing it, and he's been doing it right too. People are loving it. So there you go. And I do agree with you in the sense that Jey is always going to be tied with his brother. They're always going to be the Usos. I don't necessarily ever see WWE seeing them as a separate entity. So once they come, reunite the Usos again, I think that's where things are going to stay. And hopefully they do have more tag teams at that point that they can really have matches with, because at this point, I feel like we've seen pretty much the Usos versus everybody,
Usos and New Day, I don't know how many hundreds of matches they've had together over the years. And, and they're always exciting. But yeah, I'm sort of like you. I think that Jey, I think this is a temporary run. It's obviously very good for him because it gives him a chance to be in the spotlight, but his ultimate destiny, I believe, will always lie with his brother. I think, and we can compare it to the run that Kofi had with the world title at one point, you knew eventually he was going to come back to the fold and be a member of the New Day again. It was a great run while it lasted, but at the end of the day, he's always going to be known as one of the guys in the New Day.
Yes, and I do agree with you, and I think that's a really good comparison because, yeah, it was a great moment. Everybody loved it, but you knew that it was going to sort of fade away. Ryan Markham says Jey Uso is the biggest underdog role heading into Hell in a Cell. Yeah, and people are really enjoying what he's doing. Philip Shaven, thank you so much for the nice comment. Says, Denise, you're doing an amazing job in the show. I'm happy to listen to you every Friday night after SmackDown. Thank you so much, Philip, for the nice, the nice thing. Oh, Philip also asked, where's Rick tonight? Rick was busy today. Something popped up. So So hopefully he's back next week. But Ryan is doing an awesome job. And by the way, Ryan, I was so thankful when we had somebody to come onto the show. I was like, oh my God, who are we going to have? So I think that this has been a really great conversation so far. Okay, let's see. I'm reading the rest of your comments, guys. Please make sure to send in your thoughts on this Roman Reigns, Jey Uso situation, the draft, whatever it is, Hell in the South, send it in. Ooh, okay, here we go. Joe Cordova says they ruined Braun Strowman. After tonight, I can't necessarily say I disagree with this comment. What about you?
Well, and the crazy thing is Braun got in the rings, and I thought, man, he looks in better shape than maybe I've ever seen him. I mean, he's lean, he's looking great, and yeah, I mean, I have to admit, I was really shocked at the ending of that match. It as much as it made Roman look strong, it also made Braun look kind of weak, and it's. Fans don't forget things like that, and it's hard to reestablish a guy as this unstoppable monster when he's been stopped so many times.
Exactly. And it's not a situation that I would have imagined Braun Strowman in. God, what was it? When they did the show in Saudi Arabia, I remember when Vince McMahon gave him like the handshake and they had that moment in the ring. And I thought, oh man, Braun Strowman, he's going to be like the next John Cena or whatever, right? And it kind of went downhill from there. Nothing much really came about. We just kept seeing the same old Braun Strowman.
Yeah, a lot of changes. He kind of went back and forth. Is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? They had the debacle where he won the tag team titles with a little boy at WrestleMania. There's been so many just weird things that have happened in the course of his career there for a guy like you said that just a couple of years ago looked like he was on that bullet train to the top.
Exactly. And Jaworski J. Bob Kurd says, ruin the hell out of Braun. So it does seem like a lot of people are agreeing with this consensus here. And then Ozzy Medora says, where was Carmella tonight? I don't know. And Paul also says, when will they kick off this Carmella storyline? I am interested in seeing what's going to happen. I hope that it's not the same thing that we saw happen with Liv Morgan, where she started having these vignettes where she's doing this, stuff in the bathtub, and she's reinventing herself. She comes back as she just comes back and nothing really happens after that. Nothing. So, I mean, yeah, she's now, back at the Riot Squad, but that's not new. It sort of renders the vignettes that they did pointless. So I hope that doesn't happen with Carmella because she has definitely a lot of personality there. Alrighty, guys. So there you go. That is essentially our show for tonight. I guess, Ryan, before we go, I don't know if you have any other thoughts, maybe something that I missed here or anything that you're excited for SmackDown. We do have a lot of new faces: Seth Rollins, Bianca Belair, Ray and Dom, the Street Profits, Kevin Owens, Lars Sullivan.
Well, one thing that I will say I was excited about tonight was that I got the chance to do the show with you, and I want to put everybody at ease that Rick will be back soon. I just came out of the bullpen, to make a relief appearance this week, but he will return soon. So you only probably have to put up with me for this week. But no, I'm looking forward to heading towards Hell in the Cell, seeing what comes out of it. And I think, again, tonight, I hate to sound like the eternal optimist because I've been known to criticize WWE in the past. But I thought they did a great job with the show tonight. It flowed really well. I was excited for the full 2 hours, and I'm hyped to see what they do going forward.
Exactly. I completely agree with you, Ryan. I want to thank everyone so much. And I want to thank Ryan, first of all, for coming on to the show again, like I mentioned last minute, and really helping fill in. You did an awesome job, and it was great chatting with you here today. And I want to thank everybody for watching the show, whether you watched on Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, whether you watched live or you're going to watch the replay. However, before we go, please do not forget to follow both me and Ryan on social media. Ryan, where can people follow you on socials?
You can find me at Ryan K. Boman on Twitter and Ryan K. Boman on Facebook. And of course, every Monday with the Power of the Pen column at sportskita.com.
Wonderful. Guys, you can follow me on Twitter and on Instagram at _Denise Salcedo. Please come to my Twitter account. I'm almost at 10,000 followers, and it's so irritating that I'm like almost there. So come follow me. I'm very active. If you tweet me, chances are I will respond and all of that. And I love to chat wrestling, play games with you, and all of that stuff. Again, that is Twitter and Instagram at _Denise Salcedo. And you can also check me out on YouTube, youtube.com/Denise Salcedo. Other than that, we hope you had a wonderful night here at Smack Talk with myself and Ryan Boman. We'll see you guys next time. Bye, everyone.